The letter arrives on a Monday morning at the Department of Justice headquarters in Washington, handwritten on lined paper, torn from a composition notebook. It begins the way 15,000 other letters began that year. Something happened to me. No one believes me. Please help. In 2020, over 15,000 allegations of sexual abuse were reported in American prisons. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, only 3% led to criminal prosecution. Behind each number is a woman who discovered that justice is a word that loses all meaning. Once you step behind walls, society has agreed not to look past. Tonight, we tell 3 stories, 3 women, 3 different facilities, 3 variations of the same nightmare. These are not composite characters. These are documented cases, drawn from Department of Justice investigations, court testimony, and survivor interviews. The names have been changed for protection. Everything else remains exactly as it happened. Her name was Sarah Martinez, inmate 538470099, at the Federal Correctional Institution in Tallahassee, Florida. 28 years old, former restaurant manager, convicted of conspiracy to distribute narcotics. First offense, sentenced to 36 months. She arrived on October 15, 2018. What followed would make the length of her sentence irrelevant. Officer Marcus Chen was 34 years old, 7 years with the Federal Bureau of Prisons. His personnel file showed 3 prior complaints from female inmates at 2 different facilities, all found unsubstantiated. All 3 women were transferred to other facilities after complaining. This pattern would have been obvious to anyone looking across institutions, but the system doesn't track complaints that way. Chen worked the night shift on C Unit every Tuesday and Thursday. The first incident occurred on November 12th, 4 weeks after Sarah's arrival. She woke to find her cell door open at 2 a.m. Chen stood in the doorway, conducting what he called a welfare check. His presence in her locked cell required no words to communicate its meaning. Sarah reported it to her counselor the next morning. The counselor said cameras showed Chen conducting routine checks within his duties. Without evidence of improper conduct, there was nothing to investigate. Sarah was warned that frivolous complaints could result in disciplinary action. The visits continued. Chen would enter her cell, ask questions designed to establish familiarity. On December 3rd, he sat on her bunk, placed his hand on her leg, told her he could make things easier, better cell assignments, more phone time. That cooperation was rewarded. That difficulty was punished. Sarah understood she was being given a choice that wasn't a choice. She could report, which would accomplish nothing except marking her as a problem. Or she could comply. She chose compliance because every alternative seemed worse. For 8 months, Chen visited her cell twice a week. Sometimes he talked, sometimes more. Sarah dissociated during these encounters, perfecting the art of being present physically while disappearing mentally. Chen kept his promises. Her phone time increased. She got a better job. Other inmates left her alone. The arrangement worked, except it cost her body, her agency, her sense of self. In August 2019, the American Civil Liberties Union filed a complaint regarding systematic abuse at FCI Tallahassee. The DOJ Office of Inspector General launched an investigation. Sarah was interviewed on September 15th by an investigator named Rebecca Torres. Sarah told the truth, all of it. Torres took detailed notes, said what Sarah described was sexual abuse of a person in custody, a federal crime, carrying up to 15 years. 2 days later, Chen was placed on administrative leave. Sarah was transferred to the Special Housing Unit for her protection, 23 hours a day in a cell barely large enough to lie down. This was protection, they said, but it felt like being buried alive. The investigation lasted 4 months. Other women came forward with similar stories. The evidence was overwhelming. On January 12, 2020, Marcus Chen resigned in lieu of termination. He was not arrested. The U.S. attorney declined to prosecute, citing difficulties obtaining convictions when victims hadn't immediately reported, and the relationship appeared consensual, based on lack of visible resistance. Chen moved to Georgia, works as a private security contractor, has never been convicted of any crime. Sarah was released from isolation in February 2020, transferred to FCI Coleman, 900 miles from her children. Her security classification was increased based on her involvement in an incident with staff. She served her full sentence, released in April 2021. In October 2021, Just Detention International interviewed Sarah. She couldn't maintain independent housing, couldn't work jobs requiring background checks, couldn't sleep without medication, couldn't be alone with men without panic attacks. The Federal Bureau of Prisons paid her $75,000 to settle her civil lawsuit. The money lasted 14 months. The trauma will last forever. The second story takes place at Lowell Correctional Institution in Ocala, Florida. Her name was Maria Okonkwo, inmate DV7821, age 43, convicted of embezzlement, first offense, sentenced to 5 years. She arrived on March 8, 2019. The facility housed over 2,800 women in conditions a DOJ investigation would later describe as unconstitutional. But Maria knew none of this when she walked through intake. She was assigned to P dorm. Her cellmate was Tanya Richardson, 38 years old, serving life without parole for murder. Tanya had been at Lowell for 12 years, was known as someone who owned her cellmates, an arrangement officers tolerated because Tanya maintained order through methods that didn't require official intervention. The relationship began simply. Maria had money in her commissary account. Tanya did not. In prison, commissary is currency. Tanya would provide protection. Maria would pay. The first week, $40. Second week, $60. By the fourth week, Tanya was spending Maria's entire bi-weekly limit of $100. Maria's family sent what they could. What Maria didn't say was that she wasn't eating any of it. Everything went to Tanya. In June 2019, 3 months in, Maria tried to establish boundaries, said she couldn't afford to keep buying commissary. Tanya beat her severely enough to require medical attention. Punches to the body that left no visible marks. Maria went to the infirmary, said she'd fallen from her bunk. The nurse documented bruises without questioning it. Maria filed a grievance requesting a cell change. Lieutenant Sarah Jennings, who supervised P dorm, said personality conflicts weren't grounds for reassignment. Jennings knew about Tanya's reputation, chose not to intervene because Tanya kept the dorm quiet. The formal grievance was denied. No documented evidence of a safety concern. That night, Tanya beat Maria again. Carefully, precisely. Explained that trying to involve staff was unacceptable. Showed Maria photographs on an iPhone that shouldn't have existed in prison. Photos of previous cellmates who'd tested her authority. Women with scars, missing teeth, broken bones. Maria stopped filing grievances. The commissary demands increased to $200 every 2 weeks. Maria's daughter went into debt sending money, not knowing it funded her mother's abuser. But commissary was only the beginning. Tanya monetized Maria's accounting skills. Maria wrote legal letters, helped with appeals, worked for free in a business run by someone else. The sexual component began in September 2019. Tanya informed Maria their relationship had expanded. This was not optional. Refusal would result in violence and something worse. Tanya had connections with guards, could have contraband planted, could destroy Maria's good time credits. Maria complied, not because she wanted to, but because every form of resistance had been eliminated. For 2 years, Maria lived in this arrangement. Her family noticed she stopped calling. When she did, she sounded flat, disconnected. They attributed it to depression, had no way of knowing their money was funding Maria's abuse. In March 2021, another inmate was beaten so severely she required hospitalization. Officers watched it happen for 7 minutes before intervening. The incident triggered a federal review that uncovered a pattern. Inmates placed with known predators. Officers facilitating violence through deliberate inaction. In July 2021, the DOJ issued a report finding Lowell violated constitutional rights through deliberate indifference to abuse. Maria was interviewed, told the truth about Tanya, about the exploitation, beatings, coercion, about Jennings's failure to act. Tanya was moved to administrative segregation, transferred to another facility. Jennings resigned, faced no criminal charges. Maria was offered early release as part of a settlement, released in August 2021 after 3 years. She walked out weighing 97 pounds, down from 145 at intake, with PTSD so severe she couldn't sleep more than 2 hours, with dissociative disorder that made interactions feel unreal. In a 2022 Human Rights Watch interview, Maria described living alone, estranged from family, who couldn't understand why she was different, undergoing therapy twice a week. The Florida Department of Corrections paid her $180,000 in settlement. She used most of it for psychiatric care, for rent in an apartment with multiple locks. The money helped. But money doesn't cure PTSD, doesn't restore the 3 years Tanya took. The third story involves immigration status, language barriers, and a system designed to hide failures from international oversight. Her name was Elena Ramirez, 26 years old, from Honduras, arrested at the border in June 2018 with cocaine strapped to her body. She claimed she'd been coerced by a cartel holding her sister hostage. The prosecutor didn't believe her. Convicted of drug trafficking, sentenced to 36 months. Assigned to FCI Dublin in California. Elena spoke limited English, had no family in the United States. Her appeal had minimal chances of success. She would serve her sentence, then be deported to Honduras, where the cartel would likely kill her. But first, she had to survive prison. FCI Dublin housed approximately 900 women. According to later investigations, between 2018 and 2021, at least 8 staff members systematically sexually abused inmates, including the warden himself. Elena arrived on August 3, 2018. Her intake was conducted by Officer James Rodriguez, a 13-year veteran who spoke Spanish. This seemed fortunate. Rodriguez was friendly, explaining procedures carefully. He told Elena that immigration status complicated everything, that life could be difficult for someone in her position, or easier, depending on relationships with staff. The abuse began within her first week. Rodriguez arranged to be her case manager, giving him control over her schedule, housing, and privileges. He called her to his office regularly, with legitimate-sounding reasons. During these meetings behind closed doors, he would stand too close, touch her arm, shoulder, hair, comment on her appearance in Spanish. Elena didn't report it, didn't know who to report to, didn't trust her limited English, feared making trouble would affect her deportation status. In September 2018, Rodriguez ordered her to a storage room, said there were supplies to review. When she arrived, he was waiting. The room had no windows, no cameras, no one nearby. What happened lasted 15 minutes. Afterward, Rodriguez said he would file misconduct against her if she told anyone. That complications with immigration meant she had less protection than other inmates. The abuse continued for 18 months. Rodriguez assaulted Elena an estimated 30 to 40 times. in storage rooms, in his office, in isolated areas without cameras. He gave her small benefits to create appearance of consent. Better jobs, extra phone time. These benefits would later suggest she'd traded sex for privileges willingly. In March 2020, another inmate reported assault by a different officer. Her complaint triggered a review uncovering widespread abuse. Federal investigators arrived, began interviewing inmates. Elena was interviewed in April 2020 by FBI Special Agent Monica Walsh with a Spanish interpreter. Elena was terrified, but Walsh was patient, explained Elena was a victim, not a perpetrator, that her cooperation would be protected. Elena told the truth, all of it. James Rodriguez was arrested on May 15, 2020, charged with sexual abuse of a ward, released on bond. The arrest made national news. The warden, Ray Garcia, was also arrested in September 2021 for abusing 3 different inmates. Rodriguez's trial began in March 2022. Elena testified, faced cross-examination suggesting she'd lied to gain benefits, avoid deportation, receive settlement money. Defense presented evidence she'd received better assignments, extra phone time, argued this proved the relationship was transactional, not coercive. The jury didn't believe the defense. On April 8, 2022, James Rodriguez was convicted, sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Will serve approximately 4, with good time. Then, he'll be released, required to register as a sex offender, but will face no additional consequences. His federal pension will be reduced, but not eliminated. Elena was granted early release on June 1, 2022. She'd served 46 months due to immigration complications. Instead of deportation, she was granted a U visa for crime victims who assist law enforcement. This allows her to remain in the United States for up to 4 years. But status doesn't mean safety. Elena lives in Los Angeles with distant relatives, works under the table, attends therapy provided by the Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking, struggles with PTSD, carries guilt about her sister in Honduras, carries rage at a system that put her in a cage with predators wearing badges. In November 2022, Elena told the Los Angeles Times about the difference between punishment and torture. She said she deserved punishment for smuggling drugs, would have accepted years in prison as consequence of her crime. But what Rodriguez did wasn't punishment. It was torture. And torture wasn't what the judge sentenced her to. It was what the system added unofficially, invisibly, in storage rooms without windows, where her screams made no sound anyone chose to hear. These 3 stories span different facilities, different years, different types of abuse, but they share common architecture. Systems where reports result in punishment of victims rather than perpetrators, where investigations protect institutions rather than inmates, where officer resignation substitutes for prosecution, where settlements require silence, where women learn that speaking truth brings suffering. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, approximately 6.9% of women in state and federal prisons report sexual victimization each year. That's roughly 13,000 women. Of these, 54% involve staff members. The other 46% involve other inmates, often with staff knowledge or facilitation. The Prison Rape Elimination Act, passed in 2003, was supposed to address this crisis. PREA established zero-tolerance standards, required policies for prevention, detection, and response, mandated training, created auditing systems. 2 decades later, reports have increased while prosecutions decreased. The law created paperwork, not protection. Sarah, Maria, and Elena are out now, free, legally. But freedom doesn't mean recovered. Sarah can't be alone with male authority figures. Maria can't form intimate relationships. Elena can't hear Spanish spoken by men without panic attacks. The cells they lived in, the violations they endured, the system that failed them, all live on in their nervous systems, in their hypervigilance, in their inability to ever feel fully safe. And tonight, right now, other women navigate the same systems, make the same calculations about whether reporting is worth retaliation, learn the same lessons, that their bodies are not their own, that safety is not guaranteed, that the system will protect itself before protecting them. The letters continue arriving at the Department of Justice every week, all saying variations of the same thing. Something happened. No one believes me. Please help. Most disappear into filing systems. Some trigger investigations going nowhere. A few result in prosecutions. But whether answered or ignored, the abuse continues. In storage rooms without cameras, in cells with doors, guards control, in systems designed not to prevent exploitation, but to hide it. If you seek documented truths from inside real prison walls, if you refuse to look away from suffering that occurs in spaces we fund and oversee, subscribe to Prison Diaries. Because Sarah's story matters. Maria's story matters. Elena's story matters. And they are not alone. Behind every statistic is a woman. Behind every settlement is suffering. Behind every wall is a truth we've agreed not to see. Until we choose to see it. Until we demand change rather than accepting cruelty as the price of justice.